Hey, Crawl Spacers, welcome to a special interview episode. We're going to talk Spider-Man cooking. He's got his own cookbook. And let's introduce the fellas who put it together. We have Paul Eschbach. Did I get the last name right, Paul?
Crushed it. Nailed
I
it.
crushed it.
Yeah. Nicely done, sir.
Thank you. I was off the cuff. I appreciate it. You provided some of the recipes in the book, correct?
I did. I
Yeah.
think I forget how many are in there, but about 50 to 60 of them, I believe.
That's awesome.
So it was a good run.
And we also have Jermaine McLaughlin. What's up, Jermaine? How are you?
Nice to be here.
Yeah, and you provide the text. You're the voice of Spider-Man in this one, right?
I am the voice of Spider-Man, Miles, and so many other members of the Spider-Verse. So yeah,
you're Spider-Gwen. You're you're multiple Spider people.
My inner Spider-Gwen and my inner Aranya. A lot of my inner Spider came out for this.
Is Peter Parker easiest to write? Is that the most voice true to you? Or?
It's a mixed bag. Some voices I found easier than others.
Yeah. And we also have Vaughn Diaz. Welcome, Vaughn. How are you?
Oh, hi, Brad. Thanks for your patience. Hey, Paul. Hey, Jermaine.
It's all good. Here, let me get a big Spider-Man head off of Jermaine. There we go. Now we can see Jermaine. And Vaughn, you also provided recipes for the book.
I did. That's right.
So give us a little background. Jermaine, let's start with you. You have written comic related material before too. Talk about that, your background a little bit.
Let's see. Comic fan for as long as I can remember. About 20 plus years ago now, I tripped and fell into an internship at DC Comics, which turned into a job at DC Comics that lasted 16 years. And then once I made the break from DC, I just started kicking around doing as much freelance stuff as possible, because once you get the itch for this whole comic thing, it's hard to get rid of. So I've kicked around. I've done some oral histories for Sci-Fi Wire. I did some work on that Tashin Spider-Man book that you did a preview for a couple.
I did. That thing you could hurt a man with that. How heavy that thing is.
a few.
That's a great book. You guys did a great
here
job
in Brooklyn, but yeah. And at the end of the day, I've currently landed on the rather fascinating world of Cookbook, a superhero fusion, and just going from there.
That's awesome. And you were born in the UK, is that what it said? And
that
you're in Brooklyn right now?
Correct, yes. Born in London, England in 19, and I think that's enough. Just know that it goes back a ways. But yes, I find myself at home in both places, but I never forget my UK roots.
Awesome. Paul, give us a little background on yourself.
I'm a chef. I've been a chef for 25 years now. I lived in Manhattan for, I believe, 9 of those years. I worked for a chef named Jean-Georges at a bunch of different restaurants, lived down in Nolita, traveled to China, ran a bunch of restaurants out there, worked in California, worked in Vermont, worked all over the place. And now I'm in Long Island out here in the North Fork. And I run a hotel in the Hamptons called the Topping Rose House.
Very cool.
Comic-wise, I currently writing a comic called Test Kitchen. And that is Chef Anna is Tony Stark's private chef, and it talks about her escapades through the Tony Stark Avengers world and cooking food. And we do recipes, and then we have an illustrator write all the draw all the recipes. So that's fun as well. So that's my other side hustle there.
Is that going to be a cookbook like this one, or is it going to be a comic?
It's right now. It's digital. It's a digital comic on Marvel. You can find it.
Marvel Unlimited. Okay, cool.
Marvel Unlimited, and then we'll kick off another after the summer season's done here in the Hamptons. I'll start writing another with a series they call them, right? Trying to figure all the
series. They're issues. They're issues.
Sorry, issues.
Yeah, it's all good. And Vaughn, give us a little background of you. You're also a chef. Are you in New York also? Are you close to these guys?
I'm not. I'm based in Durham, North Carolina.
Okay.
I'm a food historian. So I complemented this trio with a bit of background on Miles Morales's heritage, which is partially Puerto Rican. And I developed a couple recipes alongside Paul. But I am a radio producer and an oral historian as well, largely focused on the tropics and on Puerto Rico.
Very cool. Here's the cover of the book. Looks great. Spider-Man, the official cookbook. Your friendly neighborhood guide to cuisine from New York, the Spider-Verse, and beyond. So very cool. Talk about how this project came about, you trio, you spider friends, if you will. Did Marvel come to you, Jermaine, or how did the thing happen?
I'm gonna say I was second in on this, but yeah, through a circuitous series of events. Like I said, I worked on the Taschen book, and I've got a lot of friends and connects in the comic industry, and this suddenly came up, and like the ball was already rolling by the time I jumped on. So I had no idea this was a genre. I had no idea that there had been there'd been a Deadpool, there'd been Avengers, Cookbook along the same lines of this. So I was just offered, and I held on with both hands and figured out the rest from there.
What's funny is there was a Alice in Wonderland cookbook that came out, I think, by the same company, and my wife is a Alice in Wonderland collector, and I surprisingly got this for her birthday in April. And then I'm like, wait a minute, there's a Spider-Man one coming out. That's like they know what we like, and you're catering to the Douglas family.
Yes, the family apparently is covered.
Yeah, yes, there you go. We've got some pictures of the dishes. I love the Black Cat cookies, by the way. When I first I thought they were going to be spot cookies, but it makes sense that the Black Cat's dad made those, and she called them. I love the little stories that you wrote, Jermaine, with them to go with the. It seems. Whoop! I meant to take this out, not Jermaine out.
No. As far as
about writing the stories, I think that's half of the fun of this book.
No, you can kick that back to Paul and Vaughn.
They wrote stories for it too. Awesome.
No. They gave me all the inspiration I needed. Bottom line, they laid out what they've because as Paul, who's lived in New York, and Vaughn, with a deep knowledge of Puerto Rican heritage and whatnot, that speaks to Miles and all that other stuff. So long as it was laid out for me, then it was just fell on me to fall back to decades and decades of Spider-Man history that I have locked up in this noggin of mine, and I was able to make connections, and some of them worked, some of them fell flat, but for the most part, it was just a back and forth. Once seeing what the recipes inspired, and then going from there.
Well, let's talk about everybody's spider history. Jermaine, you said you've been a fan for years. When were you first introduced to Spider-Man? Oh, this sounds like a good one.
No. I go back as far as the '60s show.
Nice.
Tripping on, rather realizing how trippy that is in hindsight.
You went somewhere I didn't think you were going to go.
No, not that kind of.
I was tripping in '67 Spider-Man.
No, not getting baked on it. But bottom line is, kid, you think back to all the Ralph Bakshi stuff.
That was trippy indeed.
Exactly, and so you're like, wow, and I got hooked on that. But that's where it started. And then I'd say the comics were actually the third thing that got me involved, because it was 60s show, Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. It is a hill I'll die on. That's probably one of the best cartoons ever made.
Spider Friends, go for it. That's what's up.
Exactly. And then I got introduced to the comics, and then from there, just being able to figure out Spider-Man history from there, Peter for a good long time, and then seeing all the bells and whistles that have been added to the Spider mythos over the years, Miles, Aranya, Spider-Ham, and the like. So I had a lot to work with, is pretty much what I'm saying. I've been a fan for a good long time.
I was wondering if you were an Amazing Spider-Man's Amazing Friends fan, because in the intro where Spider-Man talks, you use the word Amazing Friends. So I'm
Oh
like,
yeah. Oh,
I can relate to whoever wrote this. And I was introduced to Spider-Man on the Electric Company. I hung around after Sesame Street and watched it on the Electric Company in the 70s and 80s. So that's my introduction.
Yeah, we had that
Vaughn,
too. Right?
Vaughn, talk about your introduction to Spider-Man. When did you first fall in love with Spider-Man?
Oh gosh. Well, Puerto Ricans love sci-fi is something that I've learned. And I believe it's because the Arecibo satellite dish, right, sits in Puerto Rico, which is the receiving dish for the SETI project for many years. And when I was a kid, when I was a little kid, we would sit outside on hot nights up in the mountains at my aunt's place and look for spaceships. We call them omnis. And we would just like sit out there and be like, is that one? Is that one? Is that one? Like we truly believed. So I think Puerto Ricans love sci-fi. And I was always very into any character that had superhuman abilities, particularly those that came as a result of an accident or a circumstance, a bit of chance. When do I first? I don't remember when I first, and I don't certainly have the same history as Jermaine. I grew up in Atlanta. We don't have that much of a comic book scene in the suburbs outside of Atlanta in the 80s that probably you grew up around. I think I encountered my first comic books when I was I don't know, 18 or something. But I do remember, and I think more than the inception is how incredibly relatable the story continues to be, and how much sort of his legacy and all of his people capture the imagination and pull people into a cool space. And Jermaine, earlier I was going to say that when you were being very humble about your role in this project, this cookbook is written in the voice of Spider-Man, right? Like Spider-Man is taking you on a journey
Right.
through food. It's not me and Paul being like, hey, eat this tasty thing. No, it's Spider-Man telling you eat this tasty thing because I swung through there, or I hung out, or one of my people, that's their food. So it's a really cool window. And I love that Marvel took on this project, right? Because then these dishes become a part of his legacy too.
Your
I
canon
think, which is
food. Your
yeah, exactly,
This is
exactly.
what Spider-Man eats. This is canon.
That's right. That's what he wants. And listen, he does a lot on the day to day, and we get hungry when we do this much activity. And honestly, his tastes are really excellent.
Well,
And
he
I'm
burns a
I'm
lot of
very
calories. He's got to
of
eat.
course. He's very muscular. I mean, I'm very curious as a recipe developer myself to hear from Paul about
Yeah.
what your process was for coming up with these recipes. Like, what were you thinking about calorie count? Were you thinking about mobility? You know what I mean? No, this is a very active guy,
How does
and he's
Spider-Man
and
keep
he's
the six
magic,
pack of abs,
right? Like,
Paul? That's the question.
¿verdad?
Yeah. Now,
No, it
now I
must
feel like
be.
I should have spent more time looking at the caloric intake of his day.
Right. What's the situation for Spider-Man?
So yeah, Paul, what's your introduction to Spider-Man? How did you get started with him?
I think we're probably around the same age. So for me, it was we had an electric company, and then
Yep.
the same thing. The watching the cartoon that was on all the time. That was so good. I remember that growing up, and that led me right into the X-Men show. Right, a few years later down
Yep.
the line, and that put me into comics. I was collecting comics by then, anyways. But I was never like clearly as you guys. I just had them, read them, loved all the stories, and then further on down the line, all the movies happened, of course, and that pulled more people in. And then I met CB Cebulski, who's like the editor in chief of Marvel. I met him before he was the guy. When we were living in Shanghai, we became friends. And so from there, like he brought me into more of it, and then this opportunity came up. And how could you say no? Like I was like, super busy out here. Like I don't know if I have the time, but like I have to do this. Like I have a daughter. I have another kid coming probably any day now. And for me, it's like,
Congratulations.
thank you. And for me, it's like this is something I can't wait to sit with them and and go through and just journey through this whole web of a universe and just check it all out, right? Like there's so many stories to read about and so many characters to just get into. So much fun. So much fun.
So, talk a bit about how long it took to put this together. I mean, when did this project land on your desks, and what's the time span of putting a book like this together, guys?
For me, on my side, I think they reached out and they were like, Marvel asked me if I'd be interested, and then Insight said, "Come on in," or asked me if I'd do it, and I said, "Sure." But it took about it was a span of about 6 months, like mapping out where all the food was. They wanted it to make sure, they wanted to make sure it was going to be very eclectic between Insight and Marvel, like having something that was approachable for everybody, having something that everyone could relate to, that, and like any person or level of person, because Spider-Man is so inclusive, right? Like he just is all over the place.
Yeah.
So like mapping out the city and like literally listing food from different boroughs of things that I've either eaten or made, and making sure that we could reach different ethnicities and different cuisines and all those different things, and actual, you know, not to go as far as to like pick restaurants that things were made at, because that gets a little more difficult, but like the idea of, okay, this neighborhood is uh has some sort of I would say something wrong, but a Caribbean flair or a Japanese neighbor. Like there's a street in St. Mark's that is mostly Japanese restaurants, right? So like if
Mhm.
Spider-Man was swinging through there, we're not going to call that out specifically, but like, how can we look at that whole thing? Because New York is has a little bit of everything. It has literally
Right.
everything you could want is in New York City. You have a cookbook that has literally everything you could want, right?
That's one cool thing about the cookbook. You guys laid it out with the different boroughs of New York. So you got Queens, you got Staten Island, you got the Bronx, Brooklyn, and Manhattan. So Spider-Man covers a lot of ground, and he has a lot of different food varieties that he can hit. So I like that you guys broke it up into different areas.
Yeah, we had to make sure there was
Yeah.
vegetarian, there was vegan, there was gluten free, and all those things depending on the boroughs. And like that was a lot of fun of it. Like going through Manhattan and being like, all right, that could work there, this could work there.
Yeah.
And then, you know, let's make a couple drinks and throw those in there. You got to have a chopped salad, Jamaican beef patties. I remember eating those, banh mi's, like sweet and sour soup. I worked in a Chinese restaurant in Tribeca. That'll do. You know what I mean? Like those sort of things. That was
Yeah.
fun to sort of inject.
Vaughn, talk about your organizing the food in different boroughs and putting the book together.
Well, I had such a good time thinking about these recipes because the prompt for me was much more narrow than Paul's, right? Like it was, hey, we want to honor Miles and his family and his heritage. What do you got for us, right? And I was like, well, I'm a researcher, and
Mhm.
so I let me review the entire omnibus, right? Like let me look through every single pane of this entire series and look at the food. So that was a really fun. Honestly, it was a really fun exercise. Just looking really closely at what people were eating,
Mhm.
and I found a lot of what I would call plate lunch, right? Sort of like a meat and three. I found a lot of like ambiguous meat, ambiguous mashed potato potentially thing, and ambiguous vegetable. Because I can't expect that the artists were as excited about food as I am. So maybe they didn't pay as much attention to what was on the plate as I was. But so I looked through the whole collection and I screenshot every pane that had food in them. And then I
Nice.
looked through all of those panes and looked for patterns, right? So there were the two big patterns that I was like, I don't know how to make a recipe for a plate lunch, this. Like that's more sort of like a formula, some mayonnaise based salad, some this kind of vegetable, some kind of protein. But I did notice a couple of threads. One was Chinese food.
Mhm.
And I was born in Puerto Rico and but have lived across the United States, and Puerto Ricans in all parts of this world, as far as I can tell, love Chinese food. We love Chinese food, we love Italian food, right? And we love a fried rice. So it felt really natural to me to do some kind of kitchen sink, whatever you have in your refrigerator, fried rice recipe. Puerto Ricans love spam. And
I saw
Spam is
I saw that
making
spam recipe in there, or canned
yeah,
meat.
I
You
mean,
couldn't say spam.
canned meat. Well, that's
Canned
the
meat, yeah.
publisher couldn't say it. Yeah,
Yeah.
publisher couldn't say couldn't say spam. I say spam. Pero that salty tinned meat is such a universal unifier
Mhm.
because people all over the world love this salty porky ingredient that is super shelf stable, right? So anyone that lives in a storm zone,
Yeah.
and it ends up being a really great fried rice ingredient. So yeah, I invented this kind of homage to Brooklyn through the lens of a Puerto Rican teenager, right?
Yeah.
Through a biracial teenager, honestly, because he's not just Puerto Rican, right?
Right.
And I figure like all young people like a fried rice. So that was it's a real that one is a real kitchen sink, right? Whatever thing you have, whatever protein you have, whatever veggies you have, leftover rice, hook it up.
There you go.
But the
Good.
real like the pièce de résistance for me is the arañitas,
I got a
which
picture. It's almost like
are
we playing this. Look at
so
that.
cute. Mira eso. They're so
Those look
cute.
good. Tell me what aranita is.
Arañitas are little spiders. So when when the
Okay.
Marvel team came to me and was like, "Do you have a thing?" I was like, "Well, this clearly, right? Little spiders. So arañitas are little spiders, and the reason they're called that is because these are grated green plantains. So not like maduros, not sweet plantains.
Okay.
These are they're really stiff and they're savory. And so you grate them and then you toss them into hot oil. They're super easy to make and they end up looking all cute like that, like little
They do.
spiders because they got all these little
Spiders.
legs.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just this is one of those and on top of this being totally on brand for,
Oh yeah.
the,
Totally.
for the cookbook, what was actually a little bit more important to me is that plantains are a really cool ingredient. They are not native to the Caribbean, even though they are associated with the Caribbean. They were brought to the Caribbean to feed enslaved people. And this I'm speaking of food history here, right?
Right.
This was an ingredient that was literally brought to feed people who were forcibly relocated to a place. They thrived in the Caribbean, and the people in that region did all kinds of things with this ingredient because they were plentiful and they were provided. So this dish actually represents to me so much history and so much of the movement of ingredients from different parts of the world to ours and the legacy of Miles Morales' ancestors
Right.
from both ends, right? From his multiple identities and crispy, delicious,
Mhm.
salty
Yeah.
snack food, which is exactly what I think a
Talk
teenager.
about the dip too. The dip looks good.
Oh, the mayo ketchup.
Yeah.
So it's exactly what it sounds like. It's mayonnaise and ketchup. Um, Everyone,
I could make
yes,
that. That's easy.
yes, Paul. Listen,
Delicious.
sometimes people call this salsa rosa is something that another descriptor for this. But so you combine mayonnaise and ketchup, and then everybody has their twist. So I like to add a little bit of fresh garlic and a
Mhm.
squeeze of lime juice and a bit of hot sauce. For this
Okay.
in particular, I like a Tabasco, like I like a vinegary hot sauce, but in Puerto Rico, you might use a pique. You can, Frank's is excellent for mayo ketchup, but it's kind of a staple in Puerto Rico, and you're as likely to see it with this kind of snack as with like a plate of fried fish.
Okay. We got a comment. Number one Marvel fan says the interior photos and art chosen was awesome. Makes the book really pop. Talk about it, the taking photography for a cookbook. What is that like? Is Vaughn and Paul in the kitchen making this stuff, and you got a photographer taking it? How do you make a cookbook? I
No,
guess.
for this project, they got a guy that does. They got a team that does that. So
Okay.
in California, so I make them all in my house at my house.
Okay.
And I don't really for them. I sent them some of the pictures. They had questions. They came back to me when they were making. They had some questions, but they did a great job of just setting that stage like that. They're professionals in that regard, like making these cookbooks. Like they can crank them out and do the things they need to do in a professional setting. Not whereas like when I'm doing it for Test Kitchen, like that is a step by step process of like I
Right.
send the artist videos and he illustrates it from there. But this is a lot simpler on my end, clearly, because I don't have to
Yeah,
do
I
that.
had a friend that used to take pictures of food for a magazine, and he says one of the hardest jobs to do. There's like toothpicks in the burger to make the bun stand up. There's what I saw like a food channel thing where there's glue on cereal to make it pop in the picture. I think that's nuts.
Yeah, staging food in the business is like we do it sometimes for photo shoots in restaurants and of that matter. It's always like it takes just one dish will take you a couple hours. So I can't imagine for them to get all this done, how much time they had to spend, how big their team was.
So, Paul and Vaughn, do you send the recipes to the photographers and the test to a kitchen, and then they stage it, or how does that work?
To the culinary directors, and then ultimately, I mean, it's, Paul developed exponentially more recipes for this book than I did. I developed two. But ultimately the idea is that we develop, we test, it gets sent over, it gets tested again, right? Because it should be. Because ultimately, I mean, and this is a thing about cookbooks that's so exciting to me and will continue to be, is that this is now a physical object with a solid recipe. And I imagine that this is the same for Paul as it is for me. I want to give people a solid guide for how to make that thing. This isn't like, we're not playing around here. We're like, listen, if you want to make this really well, do these things, adapt it in your own way. So, I sent my recipes forward, and I didn't see the photo process as much. But what I noticed from the outside, because I have two cookbooks of my own, was it's just a very whimsical approach to the photography for this
Yeah, it's
book,
fun.
right? Like it was like I think it was right on brand, and captured a lot of, they're bright, they're engaging. These are pictures that make you want to eat that, which
And
hopefully makes you want
it's
to
the
cook
little
it.
things in the pictures also. I don't have a picture of it, but back to those black cat cookies. There's like jewelry in the background, like the black cat just robbed a jewelry store and hey, let's
Mm.
just make some cookies. I mean, that's the little touches like that. Jermaine, what you can't do a cookbook of Spider-Man and not have wheat cakes, man. I'm glad that you appreciate the love of wheat cakes, which are when you think about it, I've never had a wheat cake. I've had
Mhm.
pancakes. So
Right.
Yeah, but I
So yeah. No,
go ahead,
go
Jermaine.
ahead, Paul.
No, I was going back when they were talking about this, and they were saying there's like a wheat cake recipe that Marvel had put out for a Spider-Man comic a long
they
time
did.
ago, and it was in it. And I went through and I was watching them make it, and I think there's a video of somebody making it like years later, or maybe the same year they came out on YouTube, and they were like, "Oh man, this is not good." So we had to make sure that this one was good because I did not want to hear about that. Like the two people making the pancakes, just really not
Some
thrilled
comic
with
book
them.
writer wrote the recipe. They can write a story, but they can't cook. I guess
I
is
know,
what you're
but like,
saying.
we don't let anybody down though, right?
Exactly. You don't want one of the first recipes. Jermaine, what was fun about writing the little descriptions, the voice of Spider-Man, like right up here where you see the text up here? What was fun
Um,
about that? That one has been a blast.
at the end of the day, it's just falling back on so much Spider-Man history that you consume, especially from the comics. I try my best to like I got the recipes, and from there it was just a question of, all right, so what story does this take me back to? I started pouring through those early issues of Amazing Something Terrible for Queens. So Queens came together quickly in that respect because I could
Yeah.
borrow a story from here, from like the first time he met Mysterio, borrow a story from there, from his first fight with the Rhino, etc., etc. Wheat Cakes just, well, again, if you're a Spider-Man fan and
Yeah.
you've read Wheat Cakes in your head for decades without
60
really
plus years.
realizing
Yeah.
what it, yeah, without really realizing what it tastes like. So even though I've never tasted it before, and I am going to give this a shot, I haven't, I haven't tried it yet, but it's like number one in my list of things to try uh once I start working my way through the book. But you have like a mental image of what
Oh, yeah.
wheat cakes would taste like, because again, it's the thing Aunt May serves up with
I
love.
mean, Peter has talked about this
She'll-
dish for decades. I mean, it has to be good.
exactly.
Paul or Vaughn, have you tried these? Have you
Hey,
cooked these
you'll get
yet?
no argument from me. So bottom line, it was just about filling in the blanks. I know where it came. I know the intention, and intentionality, and the love that was intended behind the wheat cake. So it's just a matter of putting a story together, and that came together kind of easy. Some of the others took some going.
Paul, what did the Wheatcakes taste like when you
I
cooked
mean,
them?
they're good. They're good, but it is whole wheat flour, so you just have to have an open mind about it, right? Like it's not AP flour. It's not going to be as light. It's going to be a little bit denser. Not as dense as the first one years ago, but no
maybe
disrespect.
Maybe the taste buds are different in the Marvel universe. Maybe these are what pancakes taste like.
Well,
in
it goes
ours.
back to what you guys are talking about. He actually needs that more nutrition for as much as he's doing.
Right.
So
that's right. He needs
that's
more
what the
calories.
original writers were worried about. They're worried about his caloric and his nutritional intake. Whereas I'm only worried about whether or not you're going to send it back. I want to make sure it's delicious.
Exactly.
Y'all selling it. He needs carbs. He's got people to fight.
Yeah, complex carbohydrates to keep that man running.
Exactly. Well, I know we've been living in an anti-carb world for entirely too long, but we also need to, embody and adopt a spirit of choice, right? If you want to be a superhero, you got a carbo load, man. You gotta, you're gonna be, just keto diet, but also keto plus extreme carb overload. I have not tried the wheat cake recipe, but what stands out to me about it, which is cute, is regionality, right? Because where are Spider-Man's people from, right?
New York, yeah.
Yes, but like, where were they from before that? Where did these people come from? And where did this wheat cake come from? What is the ancestry behind that? Because often, I think that people don't wonder, right? Why does my family make this dense thing that maybe I don't love that much, but it's tradition, right? And tradition is really important. And Spider-Man has traditions too. You know what I mean? I mean, he's got this adopted universe and all of these acolytes, but he came from somewhere and his people, I've always assumed that his people were Midwestern in origin, right? Like there's something about the wheat cake that suggests to me that maybe his grandparents, one of them was in Iowa at some point.
Farmers.
Ancestors.
Maybe we're just lucky that he's not eating offals. No. We don't have to.
Thank goodness.
Aunt May's stir-fried kidneys, and we're just lucky.
That would have been a very different book. Yeah, no, Aunt May's chitlins. You know what I mean?
No.
It would have been a very different book. You're right.
Here's another recipe. The villains have a little bit of say. Doc Ock's chicken larb. I like that you guys talked about how every time he fought Doc Ock, he smelled this on him. I thought that was fun. That was clever.
Some of those connections, again, some of those connections I had to do a little bit of reaching, but at the same time, it just fit. Once I got the villain together with the dish, or the hero ally together with the dish, it dovetailed. And again, this is about making, this is about creating stories, grounding Peter's adventures that were on the page in places that I've been to, or things and sensory smells and whatnot that I've had growing up. Because born in the UK, but I've been in New York for as long as I can remember. So a lot of these places are just like home to me, or places where I would go to visit my friends, places I would go for any particular reason, all around the 5 boroughs. A little less on Staten Island, but for the most part, I have a decent amount of Queens in me, even though I'm a Brooklyn kid. So it came together well enough. And you would imagine, if he's fighting these the Doc Ocks, the Sandmans, I went through the entire Sinister Six in Queens just to make it all nice and neat. So if he's fighting these villains, there's going to be more than just, because smell is such a powerful memory agent. It binds things together. So it's not just going to be the fight. It's not going to be the flips and the kicks and the whatnot. There's going to be some smells, and every part of Queens has a distinct aroma to it. So when I was approached for this project to begin with, I was like, this makes perfect sense. Why hasn't this?
Jermaine, I don't know. In my mind, I'm seeing like post-its on a wall. You got like a villain, and then another post-it. Okay, chicken larb under Doc Ock. You got you got Sandman, and he likes the boardwalk food. Black Cat. Did you have a post-it
you
wall?
forget the string. You forget the cork board and the string. But
strings.
yes, yes. A nice Venn diagram that brought it all
Venn
together.
diagram. You got bar graphs. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Again, back to the photos. I love that they have this looking like a lab.
They got the
Making
beakers
this
in
a
there.
lab.
Awesome.
They did a really, really good job with that. Spider Girl and says that thank you. I've wanted to make Aunt May's wheat cakes because the recipes have never even looked like they would taste good. So Spider Girl is going out and trying this one. So props to you all.
If you got a problem, Spider Girl, find me and send me an email.
There you go, Spider Girl. There's your recipe.
Mix it gently. Mix it gently. Don't overmix your wheat cakes. That's number one problem.
Oh,
just
like Vaughn's doing. Yeah.
Yeah. Don't want to work the gluten up.
What was the most fun recipe in the book, Jermaine, to write? What story did you like writing about? Or what was, to use a Spider-Man term, off the wall that was most fun?
Miles, anything having to do with Miles was a lot of fun. Just in terms of there's like Pete's great, hence the reason he's the star of most of this book. But Miles, not just because of the multicultural dynamic, but the fact that he's in Brooklyn, which is literally the world outside my window.
Right.
Yes, just being able to get a lot of those recipes in there in his voice, those came together the fastest and were a lot of fun to do. And then there were the odd, weird ones that were more fun than I thought they'd be. There's a Harlem recipe with tombstone and chicken and waffles.
That one was fun, where they fought. They had a fight, and they went through the window. And what did the chef say? You fight or you eat, or what did he say?
Exactly. I had more fun with that than I thought I would.
I can just see those two stopping the fight and sitting down and eating with the chicken and waffles.
Exactly. So between that one and the Kingpin recipe with what egg dish was it?
Oh, I saw that one. It's something. It was
eggs? Paul, you thinking eggs Benedict? Hold on.
Yeah, it was eggs Benedict for the Kingpin.
Yeah.
Here, I can pull it. I don't have a picture of it, but oh yeah, eggs Benedict. There it is.
Yeah, there you go.
Right there, eggs Benedict.
I went right back to remember Bendis's Ultimate Spider-Man run?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, no, just like the interactions those two had just jumped straight into my head for that one, and it just worked out perfectly. So I was like, yeah, this came together nicely. So
here is the chicken and waffles one that you were talking about right there. That's hysterical.
Yeah, I lived in Harlem for 3 years, so that was an easy pull. I used to go to Amy Ruth's and have a glass of Kool-Aid and get fried chicken and waffles on my day off.
One of my favorite ones, if I can pull it up, of course you had Luke Cage, and of course he had a Christmas theme, the Sweet Christmas. I thought that was, of course, even Spidey's like, really? A Yule log? I mean, that was really fun. That was fun. And not only was the Yule log off he went 4 pages on a Yule log. I thought that was so fun.
That was a fun one, yeah. Sure.
Easy to put together or harder than you thought for the Yule log, Paul?
I mean, we make it in the restaurants. I've been making those for years. And it sort of fit when they were like, he says, what's he say? Something like
Sweet Christmas. He says that so he doesn't cuss. Yeah.
Yule log, and that was one that they actually came back to me and they were like, "Hey, chef, we can't get the cake to roll." And I started panicking, and I went in and we banged one out real quick, and I had put whisk for an attachment or paddle instead of an attachment for whisk, and then the rolling. So we had detailed find that out, and they came back the next 24 hours. And they're like, all right, we got it. But for that one, for me in the kitchen, like we make those things. Those are.
Yeah.
But I think at the same time at home, like once you get, like you can make that and have fun with it, and who cares if it breaks? You just put a little more frosting and glue it back together. It's a Yule log. Right?
Also, you guys didn't go for the obvious joke with Peter Porker and go for something pork or bacon related. You went with peanuts.
That might have been a bridge too far. Let's just put it that way.
He's not a cannibal, He isn't going to eat some bacon. Another good one. You have Pizza Dog, Hawkeye, and Kate Bishop with the grandma's slice of pizza. I thought that one looked good too.
Like that jumped to mind immediately because
Pizza Dog right there.
I went to college in downtown Brooklyn, and like when you're a kid on a budget, living in the dorms, end of the day, the only thing you have enough money for at the end of the week is a grandma slice. Exactly. So that's sung to me. And then flashing back to the Hawkeye Disney Plus series, a lot of that was shot around areas that I used to frequent, and so it just naturally came together in my head. Pizza Dog, grandma slice.
Don't overthink it. It's easy.
Exactly.
It works.
Mm-hmm.
Vaughn, do you have a favorite recipe in there? You said a lot of the Miles stuff you like that you contributed to. Is one that stands out to you in the book?
You've already identified the ones that I was excited about. I mean, the larb looks really good to me. And I think that what excites me about this book, because I have been giving copies out to young people, and the young people today are on their digital devices all the time at a very early age. And it's been kind of interesting to hand this book to 7-year-olds and 8-year-olds, 9-year-olds, 10-year-olds, and be like, hey, this is something you can connect with. And they'll take the book and be like, Spider-Man is in here. I'm like, yes, it's a book. It's printed on paper, and he's here.
Paper.
No, I mean it's been. I'm not totally surprised by this, but when you have your name attached to something, right, and you give it to a child and you say, hey, I made this, at least like for me in my community, I like to model success, right? I like to go to young brown people and be like, hey, you can make a book too. Look, Titi Vaughn made a book.
Right.
She put some recipes in here. And so I'll hand them the book, and they'll look at it for 2 seconds and they'll like throw it on the ground. And I'm like, no. I'm like, you children,
I worked so hard.
Exactly. And then I understand the equivalent experience of my parents, right? Like they had a different challenge. But for me, I love this book for fans. I love it as a cookbook concept. And again, like Paul's recipes are solid. There's all sorts of stuff in this book that I'm like, man, I don't have a recipe for that. How exciting to get to like have this and connect it with Spider-Man. But I'm so excited that Marvel is creating these cookbooks that bridge this food, culture, fantasy, legacy divide. Because we got to hand these things to children, and get them, I get it. There's a sustainability element to digital platforms sometimes. Like, how many books do we need? Well, cookbooks are beautiful, and people really pass them down. And I think that the recipes that Paul developed are actually like approachable for young people too. They're approachable for kids. These are recipes that you can make.
That's an end. You can get your kids in the kitchen. Mom and dad, get your kids in the kitchen with them.
Exactly. Because, the thing about comics that I think continues to be the case is that they capture, as adult as the philosophies may be and the concepts, they capture the attention of young people, right? And they end up being a gateway to ideas and philosophies and communities and ways of being. So, to me, it's like connecting like a comic book universe to a culinary universe and packaging it to give to a young person, be like, come on, give it a shot, try to cook a thing.
Right.
Yeah.
It's awesome. It's awesome. And I hope that we see many more of things, many more of these kinds of books.
Another one of my favorites inside the book was the cannolis by the enforcers. The Italian mobsters love a good cannoli. I thought the cannolis looked great, Paul.
I mean, cannolis, those are fun and those are easy. Like you can just knock those out, especially you can find the shells, which you can probably find on Amazon. Like cannolis are real easy to do and real fun. And it's so fast.
Can I be controversial in this space though and say I never had a cannoli that I liked?
Oh,
No, you could absolutely say that.
everybody has different tastes.
But
I
like
feel sad about
if
that
you find
because
one, they have to be like whipped to super smooth, enough air that's in it. And you have to have just enough orange in them, like a little orange zest to like pop out because it's like cheese, right? It's sugar, sweet cheese with chocolate chips. That's what it is. It's ricotta cheese.
Yeah.
So
Just like you'd put in lasagna.
right, but it's
Yeah.
with chocolate.
Cookie pastry shell, yeah. So,
And tying it into the biggest movie of the summer, you also have Deadpool in here, right there, talking about tiramisu, which looks delicious, and it's a Deadpool Spider-Man text conversation. Where Jermaine will be coming back. I think we lost Jermaine for a minute, but that was a lot of fun. Oh, let me add him back. There he comes. Hopefully. I was just talking about Jermaine. You're riding the wave of the Deadpool Wolverine movie. You got Deadpool cooking something in here too with tiramisu. That was all planned, right?
Well, yeah. Again, it's Staten Island.
Mm-hmm.
So, as you may have noticed, I opened up that that chapter with a note or two about how hard it is to swing around Staten Island.
Right.
So, it naturally lent itself since there was a recent storyline with Deadpool becoming the king of monsters around there.
Right.
And as far as a natural lead-in, tiramisu just seemed perfect, and it's fun to break the fourth wall every now and then. Even though Pete's in no way, shape, or form aware of what's going on, it was good to be able to get that one in there just to flex my muscles on Deadpool a little bit.
And of course, Wolverine likes probably a rare burger. That burger looks delicious, Paul.
Mm-hmm.
There you go.
I mean, Wolverine is probably very, very rare. He still wants it mooing. So I thought the Wolverine part was fun too. Paul, do you have a favorite recipe in here? One that just knocked it out of the park?
I mean, there's a few. Like I liked army stew. I mean, they're talking about caloric intake. There you go, right? That's something that in army stew is like a ramen dish, but it's got ramen, hot dogs, cheese, beans, protein. The whole thing is like Korean soldiers would eat that when they're going through basic training and all that stuff. So that being in New York City as a Spider-Man, that sounds like it makes perfect sense. But for me, anything that has an Asian touch to it, really I love to do. And even some of the Italian stuff. I
found the army stew. It's right there.
Look at that thing. That's beautiful. At least 6,000 calories. Hammer that.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, I mean, all those things, like a lot of this food like reminded me of the years I lived and like was able to put myself, I was in my 20s living in Nolita and going all throughout Manhattan. And I lived in Harlem as well. And so eating at the halal truck in Midtown and throwing a halal recipe in there, the halal guys sort of owed or shot at them. But all those things were just fun for me to remember. So a lot of these things really meant a lot to me. Put them in here.
Awesome. And if memory serves, what was Mary Jane's dish? It was a pastrami sandwich.
Oh, pastrami sandwich, yeah.
Yeah. That's what Mary Jane. What was the story of her and Spider-Man with the pastrami sandwich? They used to go to after when they were in high school. They used to go. Used to put her on the back of his moped. and go get a pastrami sandwich.
If only we could have gotten some pictures from some John Romita senior pickup art in that one. Oh, would have made my
Oh,
day.
face a
But
tiger. You could have had
yeah,
tiger's blood or
yeah,
something like that. That could have been fun. Like tiger's blood. What do they call snow cones? I don't know.
not bad, not bad.
You guys are the
Something to
authors.
think about for the sequel,
The sequel.
if there is one. Knock on wood. Just depends
Yep.
on how well this sells. But
I think
just
it'll do great.
touch on something Vaughn said real quick, because
Yeah.
I made a point to share a link from my godson, who is also who was a big inspiration for me on this book, because he is a huge Miles Morales fan, has been since the first Spider-Verse movie. Yeah, for some kids, it's going to be a bit before they realize how important it is to see your name in print and see that you can put together something like this. For others, and I think he's at the nice sweet spot with it, because he was at 13. Because I put his name in the dedications and didn't let him know until the book actually saw print. So
Awesome.
he loves running around as Miles. He learned to do backflips in costume because of this character. So it meant a lot to me that it meant a lot to him to not just see his name in this book, but to know that he knows somebody who was a part of its creation. He's a creative kid. He just trying to find his way. It means something to show that people like us are doing something in this realm where we can dream big and we can speak across cultures, dialects, nationalities, and just bridge a divide. It hit me hard when when he was so thrilled and proud that his name was in the mentions, and then he doubled down because he has a YouTube page, because of course he does. He's 13.
He's 13.
He's 13. Of course he does. And he made the arepas.
Oh, how cool.
Yeah. I shared that with everybody. He
Tastes good?
he according to him it does. We don't live in the same city right now, but he has promised me he'll double back around and make that for me and his dad when we see him when I see him in person again. But it's just he was moved like from the jump to just do one, and he said he's going to do more. So again, once you get the hooks in, that's why this book seemed like such a natural fit, because again, this town is amazing when it comes to the diversity exactly. So the multiple facets to what makes up New York food are all caught up in this book, and I enjoy being a part of it. And it took him to a place where he wanted to make a dish, if not a couple. So no, you'll get your hooks in the kids. Don't worry about that.
And that made the whole thing worth it. I'm looking at the acknowledgments you're talking about right back here, and you have a really sweet acknowledgement that says, to Kenton, you're my Miles, keep taking that leap of faith. So that was really sweet that you wrote that. That's really nice. Paul, you have some acknowledgments in the back too. You want to talk about that a little bit? I like the one
right.
You wrote to Caroline, one more crazy thing to look back on with you, still loving the ride.
Yeah, it's been a ride. We've been living all over the place, traveling all over the place, and trying to write a cookbook in the middle of a busy summer and raise a daughter and be a husband and figure life out. Just acknowledging that in that there you have a partner, and that partner is the only way you get it done is you have someone that supports what you're doing and allows me to disappear for so many hours and to make these things and to do the things that I love. And that's what I appreciate. And then my daughter, again, I can't wait for her. She's excited to, at 5 years old, she's learning more and more about it, but it'll be a little bit later till she can get into comic books with me. She's already cooking with me, and then we put them together, and that's going to be a fun surprise.
tell you what, don't blink. Mine just turned 14 last week,
Oof.
and she. So yeah, and
Things are
I'm
fast.
I'm no longer as cool as I used to be. I hopefully in the 20s I come back around. You know.
I think it comes back. I'm hoping it comes back around.
She actively says Spider-Man was cool and now it's not cool. But I think when she hits her 20s, Spider-Man will be cool again. I don't know, but
Has
anyway.
to be. Has to
And,
be. It will be.
and also Vaughn, your grandma, and gave a shout out to your grandma at the book. Talk about your grandma. Did she inspire the love of cooking to you?
Yeah, yeah. My grandmother was a really interesting person. She was born in the Dominican Republic. Um, Apparently, escaped the island in the trunk of a car. There will be a novel about this someday. But her father was assassinated in some Rafael Trujillo era situation. For Juno Diaz fans. The Brief Wondrous Life of Oscar Wilde speaks about this moment in the Dominican Republic. But to me, she was my grandma, and she, Tata is what I called her, and she introduced me to the flavors of Puerto Rico when I would visit her on weekends. And she also later in life developed Alzheimer's, and I started cooking really and writing about food because she had been my sort of culinary docent to Puerto Rico and a real connection. And when she developed Alzheimer's, it was just gone. So I was trying to find a way back, or yeah, maybe not a way back, but rather a way to preserve that connection.
Hmm.
And
I wonder
you
if,
know,
I'm not a doctor, but I wonder if Alzheimer's and food brings memories back. I wonder. At least I wonder if that ties into it.
yeah, yeah. I mean, my mentor, he passed last year. His name was um, Cruz Miguel Ortiz Cuadra, and
Mhm.
he had a theory about the palate's memory, right?
Yeah.
Like the ways in which our tastes are a connection to the past.
Right.
And I mean, back to Spider-Man, right? Like what did the spider transfer to him, right? Like what kind of like futuristic palette may he have? What may he be putting out into the world? It's calorie counts aside. The universe that he lives in, and being in Manhattan is such a cool it's such a cool platform. It's such a cool opening for people to explore all of the different avenues of flavor, right?
Yep.
And yeah, so my grandmother was yeah, she was my muse in many ways.
That's awesome.
She introduced me to intense flavors that I was not experiencing in the suburbs of Georgia, which is where I ultimately grew up. Um, but yeah, and I also had, I don't know about Paul, I imagine this is true for you, but when I test recipes, I make a lot of quantity, and then I need people to eat what I've produced, because if I'm
You're,
testing something,
you're the friend
I
to
can't.
have.
Yeah. So there are a lot of people, some my family I think too, but all of the people who I can text kind of late at night, be like, can I bring you a plate of this in the morning? And can you actually commit to eating it and letting me know what you think? Can I bring it to you hot tonight when it's fresh cooked? And can you
Anybody
tell me
turn
what
you
you think?
down for that? I don't think they would.
Never, never. No, no one's ever turned me down, but the like hot now is a very unusual offer. But
Absolutely.
when I can do that, it's the best,
Oh, no
you
doubt.
know. And honestly, when I lived in New York, one of my I know we're approaching the end of this, but I lived in East Harlem for a long time. That was my first favorite home in New York. And there I had neighbors, like good neighbors who I could be like, "Hey, I just made a bunch of this and got room in the fridge. Can I bring you something?" I miss that. I really do miss that. It's kind of the coolest part of being a cook.
Paul, are you doing that? Are you texting people? I got something hot. I need you to try it. Can I bring this over? Do you do that too?
We were living.
I wish.
We were living a place. We were living on the North Fork, and I lived basically next door was a winery. So there was constantly people that were winery customers. So I would just walk over to the winery and bring food over for everybody to eat, and
Oh,
that's what happened to that. So I
That's
just
how
gave
you
it
make
away.
friends
how
right
lucky
there.
they
Give it
are.
away.
Yeah,
The
how
people
Making
working
friends.
and the people working and the customers would just get to have some food.
Jermaine, I never have people that text me and say, "Come on, can I come over? I've got a hot plate." I mean, that never happens.
We're in the same boat in that one. Unfortunately, these two don't live close enough by for me to have sampled anything
No, I want to
on
be
the
their
menu.
neighbor. I
But
mean, man. If you got some, we're getting
you
ready to
and me
wrap it
both,
up.
my friend. You and me
Chat, if
both.
you've got some questions that you want to ask the three real quick, we'll pop them up. Let's see. Spider Girl says that we need physical cookbooks because my screen always times out on my digital recipes and my hands are covered in ingredients, so I can't scroll on the iPad down to the instructions, which is very true. We need physical media.
Mhm.
This happens to me too. And then a pop-up happens, and then I blame the I screwed up the recipe for the pop-up. You know, you just can't. Digital cooking doesn't work. Physical books. There's no pop-ups in there.
That's right.
Um,
That's
we also have a question about, can it be ordered through your local comic shops? Not immediately finding it on Comics Hub, which is usually inventory list for mine. I've got a link in the chat. It's to Amazon if you want to order it through Amazon. But I imagine if you go down to your local comic shop, they can place an order for it if you'd like.
I think it's also at bookstores now too. It should be.
I did. I saw it
Like
on the
Barnes
shelf.
and Noble.
Barnes and Noble. I've seen it. Books a Million. I have in town. So it's out there. It came out in early July, I think, is when it came out. So, but
yeah.
So it's a lot of fun. All right, you all. Final thoughts, Jermaine. What's your final thoughts on the book? And your friends here, your spider friends.
I did not know what I signed up for, but when I got my initial copy, I was blown away. It came together a heck of a lot better, and I thought we did good work to begin with, but getting the final copy in hand, the gorgeous cover, the pickup art they use, and especially the photos of the recipes themselves, came together better than I ever could have hoped for. And again, it was a nice little melding of the New York outside my window, the Spider-Man that I've known for all these years, and some amazing recipes that I definitely cannot wait to try. In physical media. So there are no pop-ups. Lame.
No pop-up. This won't hurt a man as much as the other ones, but this is a pretty thick book.
Oh, yeah. We keep these around for.
Oh my gosh!
That's a two-hander. That's a two-hander. It's not a small.
You have to have a permit to carry that thing. I mean, that's.
Yeah, it's a mallet. It's truly
a mallet.
That's awesome.
Paul, final thoughts on the book?
Oh man,
it's home to say the least. Yes,
it is.
It's a great time writing the book and making all the recipes for it and being a part of the project. I'm so thrilled. It's once in a lifetime opportunity. I couldn't say no to, and so happy to be a part of it.
And Vaughn, final thoughts?
I echo Paul's sentiments. I also really want to encourage. So there's this real trend around cookbook clubs that's happening in, at least in the US right now. I want to encourage people to start a Marvel cookbook club. Like, I think this is the right platform. There are multiple books out there. You could just do Spider-Man, but it's really cool. It's like people are coming together. They get their book. People cook stuff. If they're living in the same city, they eat the food together, or like folks are doing this across the country. So it was an awesome project. And I really genuinely want people to cook these recipes because they're good. They're delicious. And it's it's a different way to connect with this community and this, it's like this way of thinking, right? Like, how does a person who's charged with saving the world, at least in his limited landscape, right? Like, how does he eat? What does he think about? yeah, I hope that folks buy this book and cook from it.
Well, Oprah's got the book club. Why don't we have a cookbook club instead of a book club, a cookbook? I think we're on to something there.
Yeah, I mean, like, can someone ask, Robert Downey Jr. if he wants to be the host of, or yeah, I mean, there's
I had
any
Toby
number.
Maguire in the other night for dinner. I was
That's
this
what I'm
close,
saying.
this close to having Toby. I was this.
You almost had Toby Maguire in the restaurant? That's...
No, he was in the restaurant. I just didn't
Oh.
ask him. I didn't. It was weird. I didn't want to be like, hey,
Yeah.
Can you sign my Spider-Man book, Toby? I
let
mean,
me take a picture and talk about this.
Yeah, or
That's
maybe
6
it's
degrees.
maybe it's Kirsten Dunst who launches it. You know what I mean? Somebody launch a cookbook club and bring this in and bring Paul's other work in here, because it's fun. It's just like a different way to bring these characters to life.
I got the
And
perfect
I think
dish
that's awesome.
for Kirsten Dunst and the upside down kiss. The upside down pineapple kiss cake. Jermaine, you can have that one for free.
Thank you. Much appreciated. Oh, man.
Hey, let's plug what you guys got coming up. Jermaine, what are you working on? What's coming up for you?
Honestly, nothing I can talk about just yet.
Otherwise, you'd have to kill us. Okay.
As soon as I can talk about it, I'll swing back around and let you guys know. But for now, everything I'm doing is on the hush hush.
Awesome.
But I will be making more than a few convention appearances over the next couple of months, just to get the word out about this book and the upcoming project. And hopefully, if you are at one of these cons, I hope to see you there.
That's awesome. Vaughn, what's coming up for you? What are you working on?
Oh gosh, like 17 things at once. I have a cookbook out currently. It's called Islas, a celebration of tropical cooking. It is a deep dive and a true celebration of the resilience of tropical island communities all over the planet. It is available wherever you buy your books. And my next book is going to be about deserts. So in a similar scope, right? How do we cook when we live in a desert landscape? What are the considerations? How do we deal with water access? What are the techniques that we need? Right. So I would encourage folks to follow me on Instagram. It's my best platform. I'm at Cocina Criolla, I can't spell in that way, but like Cocina Criolla, Cocina Criolla. And check out what I'm doing next. I'm always trying to find ways to connect story to people to food, and was really delighted to be a part of this.
And Paul, the name of the restaurant again? Tell me where it's at. So if people are in New York, they can go to it.
I'm in Bridgehampton, New York, and it's called the Topping Rose House. And then we got the new run of Test Kitchen, which I should start working on in the fall. So it'll probably be out next spring, next summer. That's awesome. Which will be fun.
All right. You three, you put together a great book. It's been a pleasure talking to all three of you. You knocked it out of the park. The Spider fan gives you a big thumbs up. Good job, everybody.
Thank you. We appreciate
Thanks for having us on, Brad.
This was so much fun.
Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.